The illustrious Jabba bids you welcome. I'm going to regret this.
I'm Pete Mitchell. He's Peyton Jones. And this is the Church Planter Podcast, brought to you by Church Planter Magazine.
Hey, Church Planter, this is Pete Mitchell.
And this is Peyton Jones.
Oh, we just had to restart the podcast because I just was an idiot. And like I said, my whole life is about going for the joke. Like, when the joke is there, I have to go for it. And
we
unfortunately,
were 10 seconds in, and the referee flag flew up.
I know. Nope. Yeah. I knew the second it birthed in my head, I was like, oh, we're restarting the podcast because I have to say this.
Funny. That's so funny.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry if you're new to the podcast and have no idea what just happened. That's just part of the beauty of the Church Planter Podcast. We have this little thing called Smack Talk. It has nothing to do with church planning, and eventually we'll get to some church planning. But
you know what I appreciate about our friendship, Pete, is that if we're ever tempted to forget that we need Jesus, you constantly remind us.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me of that phone call I had with you yesterday, and I'm like, I'm going straight to hell. I'm going straight to hell. And you're just like, but for the grace of God.
Yes, that would be all of us for sure. And, it's funny, man, because I know we're getting into smack, but just on a serious note, I've been so blessed going through the Old Testament. I did Leviticus for Through the Word, did Deuteronomy, and now I'm in Joshua. And I'm just blown away, man, just reading. And, Joshua is, particularly from like chapter 15 on, it's a bunch of geography. But I'm even having fun with that, I don't know why this is, but like when I really study the Bible, every chapter of the Bible becomes amazing and fantastic to me. And it's trippy because each time I'll be like, oh, when I first look like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And then by the end, I'm like, that might have been one of the best through the words I've ever written. So I'm having fun, man.
What book are you doing now?
What'd I do? Uh-oh. Did I mute?
What?
There
Lost
you are.
Sheep to Shepherd. Lost Sheep to Shepherd. Hey, what book are you doing?
I muted you. I muted my sound coming in. That's weird, so I couldn't hear you.
What book are you doing?
Joshua.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. It's rad, man. I'm loving that book. But I can't wait to get into Judges because that's like the superhero book of the Bible.
Are you doing the whole Bible, or are you still just doing pieces for his main?
No, I'm doing pieces, but check it out. Like I am like on a roll. Like I've got Leviticus. I don't do numbers. I've got Leviticus, Deuteronomy.
Why don't you just do the whole Bible? Your whole idea for them?
Yeah.
Why don't you just do that same thing?
He said yes. So the way
who cares what he says? You should just do it anyway.
I am. One day I will start another podcast that will be all of these recordings. That was the deal I made, as I get to retain these recordings for my own personal use as well. So I get to put these if I want to do a podcast. So I've got to go back and do Genesis and Exodus, Numbers. Then, dude, I would have Genesis. If I did those three books, I'd have Genesis all the way through to 2 Samuel. Dude, that's awesome. You know what I do is I would set that up on archive.org. And because you basically have a finite number of episodes that you're going to do. Right. And that way it never costs you like Libsyn costs us, and we'll always have to pay for Libsyn or it'll go away. So just set it up on archive.org and you're good. Oh, dude, you totally got to tell me about that. We can talk about that.
Petey's got the magic. Petey's got the magic. Hey, so I got a quick little story for you. I can finally relate to you.
Oh?
Yeah,
Finally, about time. 7 years in, man.
I know. Well, you know how like when Chuck Smith passed, like that, rocked you because he was such an influential person in your life. Even though, it's not like you had him on speed dial or anything. You weren't like that.
Hey, Chuck, it's me.
You're right.
Although I am kind of like that with Ralph Moore these days. Like, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, but
like he's coming over to my house for a barbecue. Like,
that's great. Let me go back to my story. It's not about you. I'm going to finish
it's not
my story.
about me. Sorry.
I'm sorry I even went there. No. So, or how like I've always thought people who are like, oh, Michael Jackson died, and they're all like crying. I'm like, dude, it's not like you knew the guy.
Dan Kennedy?
Dude, I'm telling you, that one rocked me.
Did he die?
He by the time this episode airs, he's probably going to have passed.
You just killed him.
No, he killed himself. He actually he wrote his final letter. He's like, guys, I'm in hospice, been here the last 10 days after 10 surgeries, and he goes, complications from diabetes and heart disease. He's
way.
like, this is my final word. I don't have, basically he's got hours left if he hasn't already passed.
So what Chuck Smith was to the Jesus movement, Dan Kennedy is to direct response marketing, right?
Pretty much. Like, there's almost no one I know in marketing who hasn't had a major impact from Dan Kennedy on their lives.
Well, I mention, like I'll mention people if they ask him, I'll say, oh, he was trained by Dan Kennedy. And they're like, whoa. Like, wow. Because he's a big name.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And the worst part about it is I don't know, but I don't think he was saved.
Right.
And because I never got that impression over the years.
Nor me. Just his titles, I kind of figured.
You think? I don't know what was his.
Well, he had the one recently that was like no bull, but
everything he did was no BS. That was like his call sign.
Yeah.
And there's when he got started in his career, he had a photographer take a picture of him sitting on a bull. Like,
oh, really?
How awesome is that?
That's funny.
But yeah, no. I mean, and I think his wife was Catholic, and I think he just like didn't like he considered himself an intellectual, right? And just I don't think he bought into anything religious, but I don't know that, right? I don't know the guy, and I certainly don't know what's happened in his life
or
in his
later days. Yeah,
exactly.
When somebody's staring down the barrel of their own mortality, one of two things happens: either they dig in and their pride kicks in, and they resist like never before, or there's a humbling, like, you know what, I could be wrong about this, and it matters to me right now. It's kind of like that analogy that. No one cares about the parachute under the seat on an airplane until, you start nosediving. Then everybody, no one's paying attention.
Right.
When when the stewardess is going, hey, watch me, pay attention. This is what you needed to do in case of an emergent. No one cares.
Right.
No one pays attention. But when it all goes down, you kind of wish you did.
Right.
And you change it. It becomes real important. So I think relevance is the key word at the end of someone's life. And, I had this one guy when we were at Refuge Long Beach. I don't know if you remember, Lori Cicado was an art teacher, and she called me in and said, hey, this, and I had been forming relationships.
Was she the blonde?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And she, I don't know if you remember, she brought that art professor. And he was known to be a little bit of a philanderer and ladies' man, and was sleeping with a lot of his students. And I had breakfasts with him. I helped him out at his house once doing something, and he was just laughing the whole thing off. And I led him to Christ on his deathbed.
Oh wow!
And, he told me, I will never be a Christian. Like Peyton, I will never, ever, like there will just not be something. And he was broken, dude, on his deathbed. He was ready. And some people say, oh yeah, he was just scared. No, because when people are dying, like I said, that I've been around.
Well, and maybe they are scared. I mean, with good reason, right?
Well, exactly. And the thing is that people are, the thief on the cross, like anyone who wants to argue that's not legit, it's legit, because when the thief on the cross, when that started off, the gospel says they were both railing at him. And suddenly that dude, like, all of a sudden everything shifted when he's watching Jesus and he's like, hold on, this dude's not like us, And so as you look at that, I've been around a lot of death, unfortunately, from a young age, man. I've seen, and when I say young age, like 17 years old, working in a nursing home to graduate high school, to being an RN at 20 to, firefighter in my 20s. I mean, I've seen a lot of death, man. And, and then as a pastor, and I've watched people dig in their heels, and they're pissed, man. They're angry. They're not coming to God. Screw him, So the idea, I think what people do is they think it's cheap if you come to Jesus on your deathbed. Well, I'm here to tell you, there ain't nothing cheap. It ain't nothing different. It's just the relevance factor changes. And if that's what it takes to get someone to place their faith in Jesus and to surrender, because when the surrenders happen, it's not, I don't do the say the prayer after me thing. I really make sure they understand the gospel. This is a surrendering of your soul and your life. And, and on their deathbed, you think, oh, well, their life. No, it's a surrender of everything. It's a surrender of the attitudes. It's a surrender of the grudges. It's a humility. It's a confession, all that stuff. I want to see true, genuine repentance and confession. If I'm at someone's deathbed, that's daunting to say the least,
Yep.
I mean, that's a huge responsibility. So,
yeah. So it's interesting. And I mean, also imagine this. Imagine, you're at the end. Like, I think most people aren't going to know they're at the end. No, it's just going to happen. I mean, one of the lines I'm fond of saying is, no one wakes up in the morning thinking today's the day I'm going to die. And it's not the thought that goes through our head. No one thinks they're getting into a car accident. No one thinks they're going to be in a shooting. No one thinks, they're going to have a heart attack. No one thinks that. I mean, you just don't. So how weird is it to be that person who's like, okay, these are my last hours. Like, I know these are my last hours. That's a weird thought. It's a weird position to be in. It's a weird everything. I mean, and in some ways, I think you're 100% right in that, it's the grace of God, it's your end.
Right.
And you have the opportunity to square things up. And so
I got to ask an inappropriate question, being that we're friends and this is the nature of our friendship. Did he give a pitch in that letter? Was it like, hey, last minute,
well, kind of he did.
I see.
He kind of did.
He wouldn't be Dan Kennedy if he didn't. Hey, by the way, my greatest ever blowout sale, limited time.
He kind of did. He was like part of his was like, hey, I hope that our tribe continues to stay together and doesn't leave, and basically that sort of thing. And then passing the torch to the new CEO, who's been the CEO for a while now, like 6 months to a year. I don't know how long he's been the CEO. And he continued to make the pitch, and there was a link on that webpage to become a member, which I thought was. And
yes.
Yeah.
Come on, Dan Kennedy.
That would be Dan Kennedy.
Not disappoint.
Right.
He did not disappoint.
Exactly. And like even this one really well-known internet marketer by the name of Frank Kern. He wrote, his letter. He thought Dan had already died. And so he was like, man, I can't believe he's already passed and blah, blah, blah. Because he was so torn up. Like he actually knew Dan and had a relationship with Dan.
Right.
And so when he wrote on Facebook his apology for saying that Dan had died, he wrote, hopefully Dan will read this and he'll probably be upset that I didn't make an offer. Because that is Dan, right? Never let an opportunity go by where you're not making an offer. But it's just it's one of those weird things, man. I finally have one of those experiences where a public figure, and I'm like, oh man, dude, it's the end. It's the end of an era. So I can finally relate to you.
Bummer, dude. No,
Well, it's a bummer, but it's not, it's a bummer. It's just, it's a bummer. Like, there's another guy by the name of Gary Halbert who was probably the best copywriter in the world ever. And he died in 2006. And so I didn't really start studying marketing.
But if you want to see what happened next, you'll never believe it,
He died in 2006. So, and I didn't get into marketing until like 2008, 2007. Yeah. And so, like, he'd already died by the time I started getting into his stuff. So it was never like there was this connection of like, oh, he's already died. It was like one of those, which it's different when it's like, okay, this is the guy who, all along the way, I read his books. I went to his seminars, I took pictures with him and, all that. And then it's like, oh, wow, man. Done. Over.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like Lloyd Jones, man. Like, I came to faith in, 87, and he had died 6 years before. He was already dead. And that dude went on to become the most influential guy in my life, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, which Lloyd Jones incidentally once had a meeting with Chuck Smith and was heard to remark afterwards, oh, he's a good chap.
Nice. Nice.
So anyways, the meeting of those two, that would have been an epic meeting to hear those two guys talk. So they were nothing alike.
Yeah. So off the subject, Luke's birthday was this week.
Come on.
He turned 8.
I can't wait.
Well, he turned 8, and we did the thing I hate doing. We went to Disneyland.
But first we went to Chuck E. Cheese.
Well, we did go to Chuck E. Cheese on Sunday. You showed up for that. That was nice.
I did, and I liked your line that you gave, which was, I said, oh, what are you getting Luke? And you said, well, I tend to wait till he's gotten enough tickets, and then I take him up to the prize counter.
My birthday gift's going to be
earned.
Whatever up there. How many tickets you get, that's your birthday gift, kid.
Oh, you only have 800? You could get this rubber ball? The Chuck E. Cheese economy, there's something broken there. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's questionable at best. And so it's kind of funny. I went to Disneyland. I haven't been there in a couple of years. My family's got passes. I didn't have a pass because I hate Disneyland. As Peyton likes to say, I am the unhappiest man at the happiest place on earth.
Yep.
And
it used to be every other Tuesday.
Oh, dude, it was when Luke was first born, it was every Tuesday and Saturday. And Jamie now points to that and says, I think I ruined it for the family by making you go twice a week. Because I remember finally one Saturday, I was like, that's it. This is horrible. I'm never coming here on a Saturday again.
It's like when my 6-year-old gets in a fight with him. I'm never coming to Disneyland with you again.
Yeah, that was it. And then
be your friend again.
And then it was like Tuesdays got really bad. And then finally I was like, look, I am not renewing my pass. I do not want to go to this hellhole on earth. And so anyway, Luke really wanted me to go because of Star Wars Land. It's his birthday. So we were trying to debate between.
Dude, I would have gone. I'd be like, hey, Luke, I'll be your dad today. Come on.
Well, we were trying to debate between, do I get the day ticket or do I get an annual pass? And my philosophy is, if we get the day ticket, then I'm going to feel like I flushed $100 down the drain. But if I amortize that over a year and never go back, somehow spending, the $700 on a pass just seems better to me. It seems more palatable because there's this, I could always go. Now, I probably will never go again, but I could go.
Right.
There's the opportunity that I could go.
Yep.
So yeah,
So it's only $100 for a day pass.
Well, because Jamie has a pass, she can buy a +1 ticket for $100.
Cool.
They did that because their attendance is so down. Which I told her your philosophy is, I think Disney is making that up so people will like flood back into Disneyland.
And it wasn't.
Well, I don't think so. I mean,
I've never seen Disney. I mean, I've seen days where it's not as busy, but they're not as busy as it's on the scale of like miserable to hell on earth. It's still miserable.
Let me put it like this. We went on Star Tours. It took, 5 minutes to get on there. And most of the day it had a 5-minute wait.
What?
I know.
Oh, I'm going
Tours.
to Disneyland. Hey, Peyton, where are you going?
We went to Star Wars Land, which is what you really wanted to hear about. We went. Right now. There's only one ride. It's Smuggler's Run, which is essentially Star Tours without the glasses in the Millennium Falcon, and you actually participate.
It's rad.
And
did you hit the button on the wall when it goes boop boop boop?
Well, see, that's the thing. Is okay. The way it works is there's two pilots.
No. Back up. Slow down.
Okay.
Back up.
Do it.
Tell me everything, because you're my first friend that's gone through from the second you walked through the gate from Frontierland or Toontown, whichever way you went.
No, it's not through Toontown.
Okay, I don't care.
So yeah, it's Frontierland. Well, okay, so you start walking through the Frontierland cave to get to Star Wars Land, and it starts out with the old Frontier light posts on the side of the cave. Like an old early 1900s, late 1800s light lamps, if you will, along the wall. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, the cave basically converts to what looks like a battle burnt out cave with Star Wars lights, essentially. And essentially really what it is, it's basically decoration. It's not like there's a lot to do there. It's just decoration.
Yeah.
And we didn't go into the cantina, but that's okay because we got a pass, and I'll ignore it and never go back again. But we could always one day go back to the cantina. We didn't go to the cantina because it had a line, and I didn't want to wait in the line.
Right.
I don't like lines, and I don't like the sun.
How big of a line are we talking?
I don't know. I don't know because I wasn't going to eat either. So do you go in the cantina if you're going to do anything other than eat? I don't know.
So you can make reservations in there. Did you know that?
Yeah, I know you're supposed to, but I think there's no one there. So they're like, do you have a reservation? I go, no. They're like, okay, no problem. Come right here. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Did you drink the blue milk?
No, dude, I can't. That's not keto.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not keto.
They have alcoholic blue milk and alcoholic yellow milk.
Oh, is it alcoholic?
They call it green milk, but it's yellow.
No, it's green.
They have a spiked version, and then your grandma can drink this version.
That's so funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's the only place in Disneyland, other than California Adventure, where you can actually walk around with alcohol.
No kidding.
The cantina alcoholic drinks have to stay in there, I think, because of what they're served in. But the other thing that they do, so you can tell I watch a lot of YouTube videos.
Sure.
Is the virgin blue and green milk are in round glasses, but if you get them spiked, they're in square glasses.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. So they have Kylo Ren's, I don't know what it's called. It's not a TIE fighter, but it's whatever his ship is.
Yeah.
And at first Luke's like, oh,
it's a TIE fighter.
Yeah, there you go. Luke's like, oh, let's go in there. And then we get up closer to it. It's a stage, so you can't go in it, but you can take pictures in front of it, which we did. There wasn't that many stormtroopers walking around, but I was able to. Well, Jamie actually took the picture of the stormtrooper holding Mackenzie's hand, and so I put on Facebook, "This is how I picture every guy that will ever try and date my daughter. It's a stormtrooper trying to pick up my little girl."
That's right. You're an invader. Get lost,
and you can't aim for crap, and you're worthless. Anyway. So, and then we saw Smuggler's Run, which. There was we basically walked up to it and there was literally no line, and so we went in the single rider line because we didn't even want to wait. Well, it said there was a 60-minute wait, but there wasn't, because as soon as we got off, they changed that down to 30 minutes. So it just said 60 minutes because I don't know, they needed to put a number on the sign. So we went in the single rider line and literally walked right on to the Smuggler's Run. And so it's really cool because you do get to walk through the Millennium Falcon. You do get, to sit at the chess table.
I'd get emotional, dude. I would. I'd start tearing up. I guarantee you.
So good that I'm not going with you. I'd be like, I don't know this snowflake. He's not even a man.
I would look at you and say, hold me.
Yeah, and I'd be like, nope. And so the way it works is, you're put into these little 6-person pods. It's basically the Millennium Falcon, the pilot seat where Han and Chewie would sit.
It's that shot where they're all in the cockpit.
Yeah.
That's you guys.
That's you guys. So there's 6 of you. So you have 2 pilots, 2 gunners, and 2 engineers.
So good.
So the pilot on the left gets to go right or left. And I mean, if they move it back and forth, that's where the ship is going. The pilot on the right goes up and down, and they're the ones that throw you into hyperdrive.
So good. So were you that one? Because
I never got to be pilot.
One.
I was engineer both times.
So who got to do hyperdrive?
I don't know. Somebody else.
Some stranger? You let some stranger?
I did the single rider line, so I didn't have to wait. Luke was just lucky that he got to go with me.
Wow.
He might have been off
single
on his
rider
own.
line's cool. That's rad. I
Oh, yeah.
didn't think about that. So no joke. Whenever I go, speaking of single rider line, the only time I've done that is on that
Cars
whatever
Land.
it is, the Cars Land one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude, I freak out on that thing. That thing goes too fast for me. I lose my stomach on that thing.
I'm really like, my respect for you is going down by the
I'm telling
second.
you, hey, I'm not proud of this. I'm broadcasting it because, it's just true, man. Like I do not have a stomach for that. When that thing drops out, I have to hold on. I have to squeeze a leg.
I don't know. I've only been on it once. It's not like I really care.
Single rider line, that gets a bit uncomfortable when you squeeze someone's leg, but
Well, could certainly, no doubt. Yeah. So, what happens is, and then the gunners, their job is to like shoot all the TIE fighters and all that stuff. And then the engineers, every time they screw up, a button lights up on your console and you got to hit it to fix it. That's how you fix it, is you hit the button. So the joke is you can either be good at your job or you can pay attention. You can't really do both.
That's
and like the pilots, if they don't go up or down, like one of our pilots didn't realize that they actually do control it. So we went through a ship and almost crashed. And then eventually the computer will take over and put you into hyperdrive because it's like, okay, we got a loser pilot now.
Did nobody went like, hey man, come on? No one yelled at him.
No, because we were all going to screw up. It was our first time.
Okay.
And then as the engineer, we also fire the harpoon because it's basically solo, when they're trying to go after that coaxium or whatever it's called.
Right.
Yeah, on the train. I mean, that's essentially what you're doing is you're going to go steal stuff. Hence the name Smuggler's Run. And so I mean, it was cool. I mean, it was definitely, because I didn't have to wait, man, it was great. I mean, I still think Star Tours is actually better.
Yeah.
Star
Tours is good, man.
Yeah, I enjoy.
And they're
going
to take it out.
Are they?
They're going to take it out. Yeah.
That's
which is stupid. I know,
That's
right?
a sin.
I know.
But it's probably because it's in the wrong land.
That's it. Now they're like, well, this is in the wrong box. So
and I think that's why it was empty, because if you want Star Wars, you go to Star Wars Land. It's no longer go to Star Tours, because who wants to go to Star Tours when you can go to Star Wars Land?
Star Tours does not disappoint. I'm sorry, but every time I go on that thing, it's rad. Like I get a different one, because isn't there something like
47 or something like that?
Yeah, like some insane amount of combinations of what you get. So I've not seen them all. I bet I go on that thing like every time I go to Disney, and if I've been like 5 times in a year, it's been
not
good.
The same one. Yeah,
I don't have a pass anymore though, because it just
really?
is getting too expensive.
Oh yeah, dude, it's stupid expensive.
Go figure, of all times not to renew your pass. We picked this year, right? But so anyways.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then we went in the store where you can make your own droid, and Luke had all these gift cards. So he wanted to spend the $100 to make his own droid, which was hilarious to me because, they go, oh, do you have a reservation? Nope. Okay, no problem. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, the freaking place is empty.
It's rad.
And so we go up, Jamie, pays the $100 with all of his gift cards he got from his birthday. And then she's like, oh, I've got a pass. Do I get my discount? They're like, no, there's no discount here because this is an experience. And I'm just like dying. I'm like, it's an experience for me to give you $100 and then go build my own toy. Like, that's the experience. I mean, it's ridiculous, but Disney knows how to make money.
Of course.
And so then, he picked out all of his parts and we put it all together, and now he's got $100 droid, which
nice.
Was
it cool?
I wouldn't spend $100 on it, and I just wouldn't.
It's remote controlled though, right?
Yeah, but it's like,
and it's kind of big.
Yeah, but you remember those old cheesy remote control toys that you and I had as a kid? That's kind of what it reminds me of.
Yeah, I gotcha. So that droid factory though looks pretty cool, right? There's like all these like droid legs going around on a conveyor.
Yeah, you pick out what you want. So you can either make a BB unit, which the lady was like, you basically pick a ball and a head. She's like, there's nothing really to put together on that. And then it's like, or you can make an R2 unit. And then you can pick, the body color, the leg color. You can mix and match. You could have like a blue head and a red body and black legs.
When I go, dude, I'm gonna be so poor because I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, and then I got the lightsaber, $200.
What'd you think? Oh, well, see, I didn't even see that. We didn't go to that area because you have to like know where it is and ask for it, or you don't get to go there.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's like hidden. It's one of those hidden things.
Oh. Well,
and I didn't even know, or I would have asked. I wanted to see the $200 lightsaber, but whatever.
So what about, oh yeah, I guess it's hidden because this is like an Imperial colony, isn't it? So, they're looking for like Jedis and rebels.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, did you eat any interesting food there? Because apparently, hey, thanks for that metal spork that you smuggled out from me. I do appreciate it.
It's not keto. I didn't eat anything there.
Dang, dude. Well, they actually do have a keto option. Did you know that?
I don't care. I'm not eating.
I watch YouTube.
They're overpriced food.
It's true. That's true. So do you bring your own food when you go?
Well, actually, I did have a salad at Pizza Planet back next to Star Tours.
Yeah, that's a good place, actually. So welcome to the Church Planner Podcast, everyone, as we reminisce about the food we eat at Disneyland. If you're new here, you're already gone. So anyways, that's cool. So like their food apparently is pretty good.
Is it?
Yeah, apparently. And they have vegetarian, they have keto, they have, they've tried to kind of follow the trends, but it's like one item,
Well, yeah.
So, in the cantina, you get one of the old pilots from Star Tours is in there. They take him out, and story is he crashed, and then they put him in there, and he kind of entertains you. But the other thing I was going to ask you about, not the lightsaber, but there's this is what I'm disappointed in. When you first went to Toontown years ago, there was a bunch of stuff you could interact with, like you could push doorbells and they would talk. And eventually these things broke, and Disney being Disney doesn't fix this stuff, right? Like, I don't know if you notice that's like a trend with them. They'll start off with some cool features in a line, like Indiana Jones Temple Doom used to have the thing you could rattle the bamboo and the spikes would come down from the ceiling. With the skeleton impaled on it, the guy down the well, he works half the time. There used to be a stone that you would step on, like in the original movie, where he sticks the wooden stake in the mud and pushes the pavement down.
Okay, yeah.
And the dart comes out. They used to have a function where that did something, and it's still there. You can still see the piece. It's slightly different than the rest. And they just stopped doing that stuff. It was like, okay, we're not going to fix that. I don't know why. And then, Toontown the same, like so many of these interactive features in the land disappeared. From what I understand, there is only one piece in the whole park that's interactive. And that is, there's a water, kind of like a window filled with water. And I can't remember if you press something or if you do something on your phone, I think there's an app you get on your phone and you press something, the trash compactor monster. It's over top of a drinking fountain. And, it's like this tank, and it looks like the water's coming from this tank, and it's kind of like green and murky. And if you, press something on your phone or whatever, the trash compactor, that little antenna eye comes up out of it.
Okay, yeah.
Which is kind of cool. Like, that would be rad to see. I mean, that's quite a feature. It's an animatronic, but eventually that'll break and they'll stop doing it.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm surprised with as much money as they make that they would do that, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So did you see any other, like I said, I only heard of that one interactive feature. I'd love to know if there's more.
I didn't really see any other interactive features. Like I said, it's mostly decoration. I mean, that's really what it is. You're basically walking down through Tatooine.
Does it seem small or big?
It seems big, which is why it seems like a waste of space. Like, it's like, where's the rest of the stuff? Like, I think they anticipated having just massive crowds through there, so it's really spread out. And it's not like there was that many people. I mean, it was like...
there's that one ride that's coming with the AT-AT in it, right?
Yeah, and I don't know where that is going to be.
Right.
I couldn't tell, actually.
Did you see the Hondo animatronic?
No.
It's the dude with like the dreads, and he's got that shriveled prune face and goggles on. You didn't see him? He's on one of the rides.
No.
Oh, okay. All right. You know what? That might actually be that ride.
It might be, because I didn't see that.
I think he's in that. It's not Smuggler's Run. I think it's that other one. So, okay, well, cool. Hey, well, I was excited to hear about that. I live vicariously through you now.
And I was just like, that's why when you asked me, I'm like, I don't know, there's much to say. I mean, it's kind of empty.
That so really is empty, because I thought that might be a marketing ploy, like for them to go, hey.
No, I think it's not only empty of people, but it was empty of things to do. It's just like, literally look at everything. Okay, great. I've seen it.
What are they thinking, dude? They had such an opportunity, and I feel like they wasted it. Like, what do you think? Like, delay the opening till there's more to do. Like, now it's.
I don't think they're going to put anything more to do, other than the other ride. I think it's mostly just, ooh, look, isn't this pretty? Like, I really think that's what it is.
It's kind of a dud. There's a lot of hype, and everybody makes fun of the lightsaber, and of course, the metal sporks and the menus all got stolen, so they stopped doing those. Yeah. So they originally had metal. Originally,
they've already for like 2 months.
They stopped it within like a couple weeks because they had these metal sporks. It was the first land you could go to, and there was actually like actual plates. They were like the metal, like when you're watching like Attack of the Clones. I know you don't know what the prequels are, but they're sitting there with these metal trays in the cargo bay, eating off them. They had those in there. And then they had these metal sporks, and everybody started stealing it, and the menus that they would hand you. So now the server takes your menu when you order, but people were stealing everything they could get their hands on, so they stopped doing all that.
Interesting.
Yep.
Huh.
So, not like there weren't things to buy in there.
At $150 to get in the park, let them steal a menu, for crying out loud. It's
let
like
them have a spork. Maybe you just mass produce sporks and you just allow people to think they're stealing them like a smuggler. But you just
it's not like they're not going to make a ton of money off of everything else there.
Right.
I don't know.
But you can buy these sporks for like $80.
Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Yeah.
I thought the droid at 100 was stupid, but anyway, we should actually get into our topic.
We probably should. Okay, so today's topic is sporks.
Nice. Hey, Doc, can you kick us off?
Great Scott! It's time for this week's topic.
Let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
Okay, so this comes from a church planner. This is a question that we were given, which is basically, hey, should I plan a church? No, I'm teasing. It's not that.
Should I plan a church?
I'm in. To which we answer no. But the question is, hey, I'm in a rural community. It's a small population. Why? He basically said, why is it so much harder with a small population to plant a church? And so our topic today, I want to answer that, but it's the topic is wrapped up in the answer, which is building trust in your community. Because I don't just want to limit this to rural places, although there are unique factors to building trust in every place you go. If you go into an urban center, there's a trust factor, big time. We know that from Refuge Long Beach. We came up against that, and we realized where we were failing in that area and where we needed to do a bit more work. There's in rural communities, there's definitely a trust factor in a small town where everyone knows everyone. And then even like in a suburban area, there's a trust factor. And so the question today is, how do I build trust in my community? So, if I'm to go to the scripture, which I like to do occasionally, the first thing I would say about building trust is you don't start from scratch, right? Like obviously you think, oh, I got to build trust. We're as Americans, we're self-made. We're self-starters. We like to go do things and accomplish, and I can do it attitude mentality. But the can-do mentality is going to fail you here, because Jesus, kind of gives a little bit, and keep in mind when he's talking to the disciples and he sends out the 12 and then he sends out the 72, he tells them, don't start from scratch. Pray for the man of peace. Like, pray that you borrow that trust from someone else. So the first thing I would say is don't build the trust from the ground up. You don't have to do that. In fact, Jesus says you borrow trust. You borrow trust from the person who's already trusted in your community. And so you pray for the man of peace. And that would be the first thing. So if I'm in an urban context, which we were in Refuge Long Beach, I don't know if you remember Marshana. She was a single mom. She had a little boy named Titus in the Sunday school.
I probably kind of do remember her. I'm sure if I saw her again, I'd connect the name.
Well, she was amazing. Like, I won't say anything about her past struggles, anything like that, but she was African American and she was an absolute gem. And we didn't realize that. Sometimes people come to your community. We thought we were doing pretty good. We were helping with the school. And of course we did that school, event, the Christmas event, where the school that we were at was very poor. The neighborhood we were at was very poor, and 50% African American and 30% Hispanic, and 20% Asian and white. And so we had decided we were going to do a Christmas event, and little did we know that was right there, kind of building trust, because we had, I don't know if you remember that first time we did it, we had the toy drive to beat all toy drives. I mean, we went all out on this thing. And we did that every year we did a Christmas function, we'd do a toy drive. And a lot of people would be crying, these parents, and they'd be like, look, I didn't know what I was going to do for my kid this year. Thank you so much. And it was just literally one of those things like, we're just here to bless you. You don't got to come to the church. We didn't have any, hey, I think we said, like, if you want these pictures, it was like on a Tuesday or Wednesday, we said, we'll have them develop. You can come pick them up on Sunday. But you don't have to come to the service. You're welcome to come to the service, but we'll be here and we'll have your pictures, because we don't have any way to get them to you otherwise. And so that's what we did. And whatever we didn't have from there, we told people, we'll give them to the school as well. But we weren't there to get people to church. And I was very careful. This started way back when I read the parable of the banquet, where Jesus said, when you do, this became part of Pillar's ethos. One of our values was we don't give to get, right? We give to give. We bless to bless. If God is the one who blesses, and we're going to be the embodiment of grace. So we would go, and I think I've mentioned before, we go and do trim hedges and landscape for people that had cancer, or old people that couldn't do that and they couldn't afford a landscaper. We just started connecting with the mayor and saying, hey, what needs doing? And we'll do it. And we told her up front, we said, look, our philosophy is we don't care if anyone comes to our church. This is just what God, it's not like we're going to go be do-gooders, but we said, hey, this is the embodiment of grace. And they don't got to come to our church. If the conversation comes up, we'll let them know, hey, this is what grace is all about. We'll share with them about grace. When they ask who we are, we'll say, hey, we're from a church, new in the area, but we're not doing this to get people to come to our church. And we would make that very plain. Well, what happened was something that I think about from time to time, where, like in America today, Pete, like we talk about how we're persecuted, right? Like, we're being persecuted by the media. Oh, we're being persecuted normally in America, Christians are being persecuted for being boneheads, right? Just being hypocrites, being a loudmouth on Facebook, saying things that don't in any way, beautify the gospel, which Paul says you should adorn the gospel with your actions. The fact is they don't do that. So in the early church, because people go, well, you're always going to be persecuted. Well, hold on a second. Let's talk about persecution for a second. In the New Testament, the early church was not persecuted by the community. When Paul talks about persecution, he's talking about persecution from secular powers and persecution from religious powers. When you read the book of Acts, it says repeatedly that they grew in the esteem of that they grew in the esteem of men, that they grew in the esteem of the people, that the common people heard them gladly. Right? So there's all these repeated refrains that the church, its reputation is good. The people that persecuted them were the religious and secular powers because they were the ones in power and they felt threatened by this movement. But the common people respected the church. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So it's a difference to what we're talking about. So what happened with us was, and same with both Pillar and in Long Beach, is our reputation started growing. That hey, these people are cool. Like we think you can trust them. They're good people, man. They're out here doing stuff, and they don't want anything from us. Like if we find our way to their church, great. If we find our way to another church, they just want us to know God. Like they're not after our tithing dollars. So Marshana came along. That was a long way around the bush to get back to Marshana. Marshana trusted us. And one of the things that was really tough for us was at first we were white. We were all white, right? Like none of us were African American. But my daughters were both adopted, both part African American. And that, believe it or not, in both my churches, when I first adopted Liberty, African people of African descent started coming in the UK, finally. And then in Long Beach, they see me holding a baby that's, part African American. They're not racist. And one of the guys actually said that to us in the park. He said, I was just checking you guys out for a few weeks, make sure you weren't racist, because I saw a lot of white people over here and didn't see any black people. So what happened was, that's a guy who made change out of our offering. But over time, Marshana, what we realized was Marshana came to us, and that woman knew her stinking community. I mean, she knew her community. We decided to do the letterbox drops. We asked for volunteers. Now, we had done this before where I remember one year we mailed them and you helped us with that. Other times, because it was just cheap, we'd go leg it. And one year, Marshana comes, this is a couple years in, Marshana comes and says, I'll go around with you. And she goes, look, she tells us, she takes us aside and she kind of takes charge. She goes, look, this is my neighborhood. Y'all with me now. And she started taking us around. And how you'd knock on doors and they have, Long Beach is just filled with those security screens, where it's like wrought iron.
There's a lot of crime in where we were at. So yeah.
You can't just have your front door open, right? So, but your door's open, but it's not open. That it's a heavy duty wrought iron gate over your front door so you can let the breeze in. She'd be up there because she went around with me and she's like, look, I want to introduce you to the neighborhood. And she was like, hey, yo, Leon. She'd yell through, she knew every door. She'd tell me, oh, so-and-so lives here. All the apartment complexes, everything, boom, boom. She knew everybody in that freaking neighborhood. We went down past a barber shop. She goes, come in here. We go in the barber shop. She's like, hey, everybody, this is my pastor, and she's telling them, and they're like, yo, Marshana, what's up? It was amazing. Such an eye-opener. And I realized, oh my gosh, we don't even know this community. We don't, this is the person of peace. This is the person. So I would say, you borrow trust. You don't build trust from the ground up. You need to be praying. Like Jesus said, Jesus was a master strategist. We so rarely listen to what Jesus had to say about how his mission ought to be carried out. And Jesus is saying, borrow that trust, borrow that authority. There is a man of peace on your street. I'll never forget when I moved down to my neighborhood. First guy to get saved on my street was the man of peace. He was a guy that threw all the parties. He organized everything. He was kind of like the neighborhood watch. That guy got saved. And I can remember, literally, he came over to my house, and I had a vision. It was like my first or second time getting together with him. I had a vision, literally right there, a supernatural vision of him broken down, crying, asking me how he could come to faith. And probably about a year later, it's exactly what happened. But it was like a vision. Like if you've ever had a vision, it's where you're talking to someone and you see this whole scene play in front of your eyes right then. And it's kind of stunning. Like TV shows it. Like TV's got it spot on when people have visions. That's exactly what it's like. And had a vision of him. He was a man of peace on my street. Now I have 3 pastors living on my street. It's crazy. My neighborhood's doomed. So, and this has all happened since I was the first one. They all thought I was a cult leader until Man of Peace got saved. So, it's really interesting. And since then, like other guys on my street have been saved. Sponsored paddleboarder, guy's kind of local legend. He was the next Man of Peace, and he's now one of the pastors on the street. He and I tag team that guy into the kingdom. And so it's kind of like, that's what you're looking for. You're looking, and by the way, the guy's a sponsored paddleboarder. He's in charge of the locals only scene here. So, it's kind of ironic that the locals only guy is the man of peace. And so, in a rural community, I don't know if you remember that couple we met with at Exponential years ago.
Oh yeah.
Doug
totally.
and Lisa. We had met with them, and
I think about them often because I remember Doug saying, well, I kind of live in this community. It's what's called a prepper community. And now I just think to myself, I need to move to where Doug and Lisa are. That's my
That
peeps.
went right over my head. Right over my head.
No.
But you remember they were facing a thing where it's like they came in and they took over the old church building. They were this new congregation. The old congregation had failed. And this is an early podcast where we actually interviewed them live on the podcast, if I'm not mistaken, didn't we?
I don't know.
Didn't we kind of like counsel them, or maybe we talked about it?
I remember we had lunch with them, but that's all I remember.
Super cool people. If you guys are listening, get in touch with us. Let us know how you're doing.
And let us know if you need another prepper to come out there and help you reach the prepper community.
Pete feels called and led. So,
and I'm applying for my Florida CCW as we speak.
So what was kind of cool though is that they were like, hey, I can't remember. I remember it being like an aha moment for him when we were chatting. Like God gave us some great insight with them. But I remember he at a certain point was like, they said, yeah, we got this old chapel building. Everybody's mad because they all been married and buried, and we're renovating the newer church building. And I just stopped him and said, hey, first thing, so the whole community is mad at them because this new richer congregation came in and took over. I said, number one, first thing you got to do is you got to listen to them, because what they're upset about is this old chapel that's derelict is that you've shut now. That represents where they got christened, married, buried for generations. And I knew this from being in Wales. Like this is people who never went to church for those 3 things: to get christened, to get married, and get buried. And they would never go to church another day in their life, but it was like an institution. And I said, what you guys need to do is send out a mailer that says, hey, we're going to have a town hall meeting about this building. This is your building. It might be our name on the deed, but this belongs to the community. And we want to reopen it, but we need your help. And it doesn't necessarily need to be money. Materials will come in, but if people care, and plus it gives you something to work with them on. It gives you so they ended up opening, I know they opened like a clinic because there was a lot of poor people in their neighborhood and healthcare was an issue. This is in the days before the Obamacare initiative, but, no comment. But the point is that, that was the big thing for me is in order to establish trust, you're going to have to give to this community with wanting nothing in return. It like you've inherited a landmark in that area. It's like it's a place of great significance to your people. in your community, and you got to share it with them. And that was kind of so I know you guys are spending all this money on the other part, but you've actually, you've got to look into maybe doing some barn raising with the community on this other thing, because that's what they care about.
Right. Yep. It's funny because, as you said at the very beginning of this topic, how do you build trust? How do you reach the community right out of the gate? It's funny because the very first thought I had is, okay, that's the same question that every small business owner comes to me with. How do I get clients? How do I, reach these people? And my answer is always the same. You do an event. Like you do an event. That's how you get to know people the quickest. And you can pull off an event typically in 5 weeks from start to finish. And that was what you said, because you reminded me of the Santa thing that we did at Refuge Long Beach, and doing the events. And I remember one of the things we talked about with Doug and Lisa was making that chapel available for weddings and stuff, because that's what the community wanted. And it's just a great way to reach that community. Quit typing! I can hear you typing. I'm talking here.
Good. I only put 10 letters in there. I just had to tell
I
someone
heard all
cancel.
10 of them. Oh, it was Pete is awesome. Yeah, those were the 10. And so, no, but my point is I think doing an event, and like you just mentioned, doing the town hall meeting, doing all that type of stuff. So, like what I tell my clients is there's 2 types of events you can do, and the church I think could really take this idea. One is what I call community connection events. And that's where you're doing an event where you're not selling anything, and the whole point is literally to meet people. And so one of the events that we do for that is what I call the family photo event. So think about every church does well, not every church, but they used to do the whole, family photos here at the church, and they'd have some photographer come in and the whole congregation go do it. Well, we would do that, just not as a church, but as business owners, as a real estate agent, as a, whatever. And then we also do pet photo events because people love their pets.
Oh, that's funny, dude.
And then we do photo with Santa, which is kind of like what we did at Refuge Long Beach. And then we do, wine tasting events. Probably not going to do that as much with church. And then we do.
Yeah, not like there's communion or anything, right? Like wine is just
yeah.
flat out.
Yeah, no, this is not a breaking of bread. This is.
Let me just give a shout out to my Anglican brothers.
What do you think of that particular wine? Oh, it was fruity. I don't know. I'm not a wine drinker.
Gandalf, this wine has a fruity bouquet.
But you can do just about anything you want with a community connection event, because it's not. It has more to do with getting to know people. And of course, in business, I got a whole way for how you follow up and get their information and all that stuff. And parts of that I would do with the church, so you get to know the community. Right. But you could do carnivals. You could do, like here in the city that I live in, we've got what they call a Taste of Los Alamitos. And it's a fundraiser, and like all the restaurants come out, and like you buy a ticket and you get to go taste all the different foods. You can do all that stuff on your church property a lot of times if you have physical property. And it's a great way to meet the community. And like if you teamed up with a charity outside of your own church charity, but like a local one that the community cares about, excuse me, maybe it's like an animal shelter. You could even do that, right? Because people love animals. Hey, we're going to support the local Long Beach animal shelter, and we're going to do the Taste of Long Beach. And it's $25 a ticket, and you get, we're going to have all these restaurants there, and they all come in and volunteer because the money is going to the nonprofit. Then you really get to know the community too,
right?
And then the other type of events that we do are educational events, and we've talked about that too on this podcast. Where, let's say you're in an area that's got high divorce rate, you could do, stop your divorce clinics, because there's usually one person in a divorce that doesn't want to get the divorce,
right?
And so if you put on, Stop Your Divorce, and it's an educational event, and then of course that's how you get to know people, and of course that just leads right into the gospel. So I mean, there's those type of things that you could do, but it's a great way to get to know people in your community. You got a Doug out there with the preppers. Hey, can you put on a shooting event, or can you put on some sort of prepper event? And it's a great way to meet the community because guess what? Preppers will come out for that. We live for that kind of stuff. Like that's our jam, baby. You speak my love language.
You never ask.
I know, right? And you really going to connect with them then. So, yeah, I think doing events, that's the way to do it, man.
It's good, man. It's good. Well, hey, if you're doing all these events, Pete, and I was just speaking with Josh Henry this week, and I was telling him how funny it is that our segues are the worst thing ever, and he was laughing.
He still doesn't listen to the show, right? He still doesn't.
No, but it in a way, it's kind of a way of making fun of the. If you ever watch the news, like they're the worst on these, right? Like where they're like something like hey, boy, I sure am stuffed, after that Thanksgiving, where they're like, hey, today on Channel 8 Local News, we'll talk about how to make a Thanksgiving dinner to remember. Like the news is so dumb, right? They've just run out of stories or controversy. And then the guy will segue speaking of being stuffed up, let's head on over to the 405. Back to you, John, for traffic, And it's like the worst. And they're always like, yuck, 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 yuck. So Pete and I like to kind of make fun of the ridiculous segues that you see. So if you listen to that, to us, it never gets old because people are just dumb. And we like to make fun of that. So Pete, after all of this, being stuffed up with turkey dinners and all these photo events and different things you're doing in the community to build trust and relationships, surely you don't have time to do all the church finances too.
As a matter of fact, I don't. And that's actually the reason why I lean on simplifychurch.com. Because when I head over to simplifychurch.com and I talk to Josh Henry over there, I say, Josh, I need you to simplify my church.
Simplify church, Pete. It sounds so simple. In fact, it doesn't sound like it could be any simpler. Is that true?
And it sounds kind of churchy at the same time.
Well, Pete, how would I get in touch with such a service like this?
Well, I'm not sure exactly. Oh, wait, here it is. You go to simplifychurch.com.
Well, I'm not really sure.
If I could only
Shout
remember
out to
what
you,
their
Dan
website
Kennedy.
was.
You taught us everything we knew.
Oh, jeez.
Too soon?
Oh, that hurts inside. It hurts.
Hold me. So now is another thing you can relate to me on. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening today. Head on over to simplifychurch.com. Hey, we haven't said this in a long time, but if you like the podcast, give us a 5-star review. Never a 4, never a 3. Nay, never twain shall you give. And we are numero uno, but don't give us a 1-star. Head on over to iTunes, leave us a review, share it out. Share the love, spread it out. If you're laughing, if you're enjoying, if you're learning, hey, spread the love. Let other people know that we're out there. And that will help Pete and I ascend the throne of world domination in the podcasting world, and we'd greatly appreciate that.
And then check out From Concealment Podcast. We finally got approved by Apple.
Soon to be taken off the air, so hurry up while you can listen to it.
I love it. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Church Planter Podcast. It's been Peyton Jones and Pete Mitchell reminding you, if you want to reach the ones no one's reaching, you need to go where nobody's going and do what nobody's doing. Excuse you.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Church Planter Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Peyton Jones. We'd love to hear your comments on this episode of the Church Planter Podcast. Visit us online and let us know what you thought at churchplanterpodcast.com. If you subscribe to us via iTunes and have enjoyed the podcast, leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive in iTunes, the more iTunes will promote us to other church planners who would benefit from this show. This podcast is brought to you by the Church Planter Magazine, which is available in the iTunes newsstand or online via churchplantermagazine.com.